Deuce. I'm Gary Graves from just outside sunny, beautiful Louisville, Kentucky, in the Bluegrass State, and in the state of Maryland, the Old Line State, the Freedman State, the land of happy living, excuse me, the land of pleasant living. John Webster, how are you doing, my good friend?
Gary, I'm doing real good. How you doing, man?
Hey, it's my season. I got a birthday coming up. I love the fall. I'm a little selfish. So I'm really in a good place right now. And it's football season. NFL has started.
Well, man, I can't wait to dig into this. We're gonna have some great topics today. As always, we want to say hi to our main man who isn't with us today, but is always with us in spirit, John Pitt. Hope you're doing well, my friend.
Yep. Come on back,
Hey,
man. We miss you.
absolutely, absolutely. Hey, man, we're gonna start off today with this NFL. We got some games we're going to talk about. I'm going to tell you the games we're going to talk about, then we're going to break them down. We're going to talk about Commanders and Giants. We're going to talk about Packers and Lions. We're going to talk about Bills and Ravens. We're going to talk about Eagles and Cowboys. And then if we got time, we want to maybe talk a little bit about fan behavior. But with that being said, we're going to start off with the hometown team, the Washington Commanders. They pulled out a 21-6 win over the New York Football Giants. They started the season 1-0. What saith you, Gary Graves?
Well, I can only base my opinion on the highlights. Of course, I'm going to go back and watch the replay to really judge Jaden Daniels and the defense for what they did. I'll admit I was a little surprised that at the point total, I thought they probably would have gotten maybe 24 to 28 points or something. But you take victories where you can get them. It was game one. Really, for the starters, that was that was their first real game action because we know how preseason is in terms of building depth. And I'm just going to say that I'm pleased. You could probably give me more insight on that. But the one thing I'm still concerned about, for all of his mobility, for all of the things that he can do well with the ball, I am still very nervous about Jaden Daniels' size and putting his body out there. I'm a little surprised he hasn't bulked up since last season, for the rigors. I know he says he can take the hits, but those hits accumulate, and of course, it really does diminish your shelf life and effectiveness. And yes, granted, it was the Giants, but they've got a big test coming up against Green Bay on Thursday night. You're going up there; it's colder, and again, Green Bay wasn't exactly sharp, but they did what they had to do in beating Detroit, and we'll talk about that later.
Interesting game. Defense played well. I guess it's a combination. The defense played well, and the Giants' offense struggled. Russell Wilson had a rough game. They got inside the red zone a few times and came away with 6 points, two field goals, weren't able to come away with touchdowns. The offense was not really percolating the way it was last year. They made some important plays, they made some big plays. The last touchdown, you saw Debo Samuel take the ball on the end around, score. Uh, Terry McLaurin, in my opinion, I I think he needs a couple more weeks to get into regular season shape. Um, One of the balls he was overthrown on a bomb. He was open. I think that's maybe a combination of being overthrown and also he doesn't have his speed yet. He doesn't have them legs with him yet, Gary. It's going to take
Mhm.
some time. So defense showed some improvement. They're big on that defensive line with Kinlaw. You still got Deron Payne there. They're tough. Your secondary, you got Lattimore who made a couple very good plays. You still got Sanders still back there, who I think he was a rookie last year, is only going to get better each season. Um, it's still early. I think you'll find out more this week when they play Green Bay at Green Bay. You'll see where they are. I think it was a good start for the Commanders. They did what they had to do. They came out there. They came out of the game with a win and very few injuries, or very nothing really to write home about. I'll say it like that. So
Mhm.
we'll see where it goes from there. You mentioned your lovable Packers, and a very very good win for them Sunday. They beat the Lions. I think it was a convincing win. I think it was an important win for Green Bay because they hadn't beat the Lions, I think, in maybe a couple of years, Gary, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, I think it was
Um,
something like three of the last four meetings or four or five. Yeah, but
yeah,
Detroit had
so
their number lately.
yeah, I think it was a good win. I think Jordan Love looked really impressive. I still, my thing is, I think it's all going to come down as the season goes on with that guy number one, Micah Parsons. I think on the offensive side, you got Josh Jacobs, great running back, does a great job. The tight end, 85, I forget his name, caught a touchdown on Sunday. Very, very solid tight end. I think it's going to come down to how much Michael Parsons can hold up. Is his back like they say it is, or is it being overblown? So we'll see what's going to happen there. But that's your team, Gary. You break it down for us.
Yeah, well, I have to agree. I mean, I that was the national game, so I got to see it. I'm surprised at the amount of time Micah Parsons got, for being out all of preseason. And I still think he needs to get his legs up under him a little bit more before I really start to feel comfortable. Um, I think with these two home games that the Packers have. It's a good opportunity for him to get comfortable. Just don't get so comfortable that you feel like you can leave him in every defensive series because I'll be honest, I was nervous for him on Sunday because when you have missed the entire preseason, when in effect you haven't taken a snap, even in practice until you arrived in Green Bay in the last 2 weeks, that there's just some off-season rust you got to get rid of. Granted, he did get a sack late in the game. He was a factor on several possessions, which bodes well for that defense. But I still say, you have to watch him. I know he'll say, or he has said, I'm going to listen to my body and go from there. He said he felt good, but sometimes you've got to take that decision out of his hands, depending on the opponent, depending on the situation. I don't think they necessarily need to play him on Thursday against the Commanders on every possession because again, not knowing that they were going to have him at all until after the preseason games were over, they were prepared to go with someone else. And of course, one of the guys, that's one of the guys they traded, to Dallas along with the two draft picks. And that in retrospect with that trade, for all the grief that Jerry Jones is catching, Clark had a good debut game for them against the Eagles, and those two draft picks, even though they probably figure to be low first round given Green Bay's positioning right now as a playoff team, you can still get quality near the end of that round, and maybe even somebody that you might have at a lower price, a long-term guy for a lower price. You could use one of those picks on a lineman and ensure Jordan Love's safety and security, for years to come. Maybe you draft a backup. Maybe you draft a running back. I still think running backs matter in this NFL, but Really, I do like what Green Bay was able to do defensively. Again, play it carefully, with Parsons, and I still think they need to get a little bit more protection for Jordan Love. I don't want to see him hurried or rushed like he was by Detroit's defense, which in essence, was really trying to play healthy itself after all those injuries last year. So, as we said before we went to air, that um, I feel better about Detroit losing than Green Bay winning because I think the Lions can only go up from there. You mentioned about the offense having some offensive concerns. I think that will sort itself out because coming into any season, they always say the defense has the advantage, and I tend to agree with that. The offense, I think, will get better. It'll be a whole lot smoother.
Okay, well that's good information to know. You mentioned a player that used to be with the Packers, Ken Clark, now with the Dallas Cowboys. Now that leads us into that game they had last Thursday night, the Eagles and the Cowboys. Cowboys came up a little bit short, Gary, but I think the Cowboys showed something, man. I think they're gonna, I've said it before, I think they're gonna be better than people expect them to be.
John, I agree. And um, wow, I don't even know where to start with the Cowboys offense. Dak looked great. That's one
Mm-hmm.
thing I can say. His passes were on target, on time. The only thing that hurt him was just drops. I mean, CeeDee Lamb drops four passes, including a couple in clutch time. And, again, Dak put that last ball where he needed his receiver, where he expected his receiver to be, and CD did not come up with it. I mean, he got his hands on it, but just couldn't pull it in before hitting the ground. And that seemed to epitomize the kind of night that he had. But in terms of Dak, you have to feel encouraged because his reads were good. He looked good. Yeah, I mean his mobility and agility looked good. He made the right decisions. I dare say he looked like kind of a young Dak, a young up and coming Dak. But yeah, like when you've had the kind of injuries over the past couple seasons, and of course, had a season-ending injury last year, you just wanted to make sure he didn't look rusty. I mean, you kind of accounted for the layoff, but he looked like he had no layoff at all, and you can't help but feel better about that. Dallas's defense was effective too, so I feel good, like you said, about Clark playing there. And sometimes, John, we often see in sports where if a key guy goes down or a key guy leaves, it's that whole next man up mentality really becomes apparent. And I think that was the case. Yes, it was a stunner to lose a game, a difference maker in Micah Parsons, but you, you know, you build depth for a reason. I don't know if I necessarily believe Jerry's belief that, well, we had concerns about our run defense, but they were pretty good against the run against Philadelphia. So, look, he's somewhere he's probably saying, "I told you so." And right now we can't argue with him.
Yeah, Philadelphia did what they need to do to win. I said it before and I'll say it again. They're not going to repeat as Super Bowl champs. Long season. They're on everybody's target list, everybody's big game this year. It's going to be hard. They're a good team, but I don't see them repeating. Cowboys showed me a lot on last Thursday night. You had a delay with the weather, about an hour delay, and they came back. Both defenses stood up better after the delay. After the delay, both defenses stood up better. Dak Prescott's playing well. Hey, you mentioned CeeDee Lamb. I'm gonna tell you something. This is just me. Give me CeeDee Lamb and them four drops at any time because it's not going to happen all the time.
Mm.
He's still going to be the one I'm going to go to. Pickens is a good receiver. I think him being on the other side helped them because you can't just double off on CD Lamb because Pickens can take you apart as well too. So
Yeah.
they move on to the Giants for the next game, and we'll see how that's going to be. The
Yeah.
game of the week and maybe the game of the season. Early, still early to say. The Buffalo Bills and the Baltimore Ravens. Man, was that some kind of game? You know, I
Uh,
can say for me, Baltimore was winning most of the game.
mhm.
They were losing 7-0, then they ran off 17 points. It was 17-13 at halftime, or was it 20-13, something like that.
Yeah. Yeah. That sounds
And
right.
then they were up 40-25. But I never got the feeling they were totally in control, Gary. I never got the feeling like they had wrapped the game up. What I will say, people are being hard on Derrick Henry. He did make a fumble at a key time, but let me have that guy in my backfield every day of the week, man. Let me give it to him every day of the week. I think something that people do with sports, you're apt to blame what you see with Henry because that's the last play of the game and that's the last thing that you remember. And when you play sports, at the end is what you remember, but that's a lot of times not what cost you the game. It's things that you did earlier.
Mm.
Example, right before halftime, if you tackle that guy in bounds, you don't leave it up to the officials to put a second back on the clock. If you
Yeah.
have the right defenses in, they don't get 3 points right there.
Mm.
Missed extra point. That hurts. The defense the whole second half was a sieve. They couldn't stop a runny nose. They just weren't they couldn't get it done, man. And they don't have, well, I won't say they don't. They didn't have a consistent pass rush. My question is Josh Allen that good? Which he is. Or is it also the Ravens defense that bad? Which we're going to find out. They play Cleveland this week. One of the things you can go either way with it as a coach. But one of the things that I saw that maybe I would do differently, and just because I'm doing it differently doesn't make it right, doesn't make it wrong, means different. I'm looking at that game if I'm a coach and I'm seeing my defense can't stop anybody. Period. On 4th and 3, even though I'm on my side of the 50, with about a minute still to go in the game and I'm up 2, I'm going for it. Because I just don't. I'm not saying I'm going to do that every time, but just the feel that I have for the game at that particular moment tells me my defense can't stop anybody. So I'm going to put it on Lamar Jackson. I'm going to put it on Derrick Henry. The other thing you got to look at too is play calling on that last drive for the Ravens. You first play you call, you got a yard, you ran Henry. Then the next play you call some type of end around with Zay Flowers.
Hmm. Which
That
got
that,
blown
that
up.
yeah, and and basically when you did that, you're conceding to Buffalo because what have you been killing Buffalo on the whole game? Running inside those tackles, pounding it in there. You're bigger than them. Now you're running outside. You're depending on speed. You're running to their strength because the Buffalo defense is not big, but what are they? Fast.
Hmm.
So you're giving them an advantage. That play didn't work. And then you talk about other things that happened in the game is on that last down, they needed 5 yards, I think. DeAndre Hopkins runs a route, and the route he runs is 2 yards short of the first down.
Yeah.
And and
That was very
at
curious to me.
at that point of the game, yak yards after a catch are hard to come by. You need to run your route and run to that yard marker, then make your cut inside to do a down and in. You can't cut your route off by 2 yards thinking you're going to get some yards after catch. Prime example right there. As soon as Hopkins caught the ball, he was tackled. And then you're looking at 4th and 3. So, those are some of the things that I saw with the game. I don't think the roof is falling in on the Ravens. It's early. I think they can still turn it around. I think they're
Oh, no
one of the
doubt.
better teams in the AFC, but they do struggle against the Chiefs and the Bills. I think they have something like a 3-9 record with Harbaugh playing against them. So but they play Cleveland this week. I think they'll get healed up and feel better after Cleveland this week. But that's a rough game to lose, Gary. That's all I'll say.
Yeah. Yeah, John, I agree with you. I think if you're the Ravens, you have to have, I mean, you have to put that one behind you because if you dwell on it, one loss becomes two, which is what coaches always talk about. Um, the game as a whole, well, I'll just focus on the fourth quarter because to me that was probably the most telling part of the game about the Ravens going forward. Um, okay, yeah, Derrick Henry fumbles. That you don't see that happen too often from him. So I'm not going to say you give him a pass, but then you understand it's like you're not going to be perfect all the time. He is a bowling ball, or he is a wrecking ball more than anything. There are two things I was surprised at. The biggest was that when you got that fourth down and 4th and 3 and you choose to punt, I know the thinking is you pin him back. You don't want to give Josh Allen a short field, but in essence, you still gave him a short field because of that defense. To get burned for two chunk plays, particularly the last one, the pass completion in single coverage that gets them down inside the 10, and that's when you know the game is pretty much over for the Ravens at that point. That defense is a huge concern to me because to give up those kind of points and I guess what was it, the last 4 minutes? I mean, you go from being up 15 or something like that, to losing at the end on a field goal. That is really, really telling about a defense, the defensive focus and actually defensive adjustments because Bills receivers were open way too often in that time span. And I'm thinking, you don't let like their best receiver get alone in a flat like they did. Uh, the pass rush was lacking at that point, and I think Josh Allen knew that tendency, and I think that's why they call those kind of plays. Um, and again, the secondary didn't adjust either. There's no way I would have just isolated in that stretch. I think you make it tough for them to get downfield, and they didn't do that. They didn't account for for guys going like 10 yards down, and that's really a problem they have to address. 40 points should win you a football game, every day and twice on Sunday. It didn't Sunday night because of a defense that took its eye off the ball, so to speak, let down in key stretches, and failure to adjust to the situation. And offensively, they were not aggressive. They played it way, way too soft. They got cute, and I've said that about the offense way too many times that in key games, particularly playoff games, when you mention that stat about how they play against the Bills and Chiefs, let's just say it, to call it for what it is. The Ravens and Harbaugh are just awful in big games. They really are, and that's what they have to prove. If you got a Lamar Jackson, if you got two Heisman Trophy winners on your offense, those are the strengths that you go with and say, look, if you're gonna beat us, if we're gonna lose with our best guys going forward. They didn't do that.
You're right, Gary. It's going to be interesting. We'll see how this plays out as we move forward. Baltimore has Cleveland. I forget who Buffalo has this week. I know the Eagles play the Chiefs, so that'll be another interesting game, a repeat of the Super Bowl. And
Yeah,
like I said, your Packers against the Commanders, that's going to be exciting as well.
potential playoff matchup.
Hey, let's see what happens. U.S. Open wrapped up this week, Gary. I think it was Sabalenka won the women's side.
Yep.
Alcaraz won the men's side. What are your thoughts on that?
Um, I'm not surprised with either one. I do think with Alcaraz, I think we're looking at the next dominant player. With Joker, I can't take anything away from him. It's just that the field is catching up to him. It used to be Joker versus the field. Um, it used to be Yannick Sinner. Well, I shouldn't say used to be because he's still the man. I mean, he got to the final, but I think you're looking at probably a budding rivalry for sure. Alcaraz plays with this abandon that on hard courts it's hard to stop him. On grass and clay, it's a concern. And of course, clay to me is like one of the biggest challenges because you have to move past you see it as a serve and volley, and you play back on the line a little bit more because you just don't know how that ball's going to go, and you have to aim that ball a little bit more on the clay because it doesn't seem to react as well as it does on hard court. I mean, bounce a baseball on asphalt, and you know what I'm talking about. That ball is going to bounce
Mhm.
high and it's going to bounce fast, and that's the thing about the U.S. Open and the Australian Open, both on hard courts. That ball adds a lot of speed, especially off of a powerful serve for Alcaraz, and yeah, he knows that, and he just asserted himself. So again, I'm looking at him as right now the top dog because there's there's just no fear in him. He has to adjust his game in other ways on other courts. That will come. Yannick Sinner is still probably one of the most dangerous players there because when he's on, he's hard to beat. Um, but that was kind of like a matchup of strength versus strength, and Alcaraz definitely showed, who's the stronger one in this tournament. Sabalenka on the women's side, uh, she's just dominant. I mean, she's very, very, coy about her game. Doesn't get too rattled. Every time you start to think she looks vulnerable, then she'll come up with a winner, this really hard fought winner, and that leads to more points for her, and she just rolls like that. What's that saying about a snowball rolling downhill? It becomes an avalanche, and that's the thing about her. Yeah, she deserves her ranking. This was really one of the best women's U.S. Opens I've seen in a while. We saw Taylor Townsend. We saw the return of Naomi Osaka rather in um, when I say return, not just a competition, but really we saw glimpses of her old game from like 3 or 4 years ago. Coco Gauff, I still like her. There are obviously some things she has to work through. Really mistakes of her own making. I think she will as she gets older and matures. But going into January with the Australian Open, I think you just have to look at those same 4 or 5 players to be in the mix. And Asamanova, I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing that one right. Very, very good tournament, obviously, to get to the finals. I think we're going to be talking about her as well.
Well, you mentioned an avalanche. I think that's a good way to segue into our closing segment, which is the WNBA.
Woo!
Normally, we're looking at Las Vegas or the New York Liberty, but you mentioned a new team that is on a roll right now, man. Let's talk about them, the Atlanta Dream.
Yeah, the Atlanta Dream have quietly, and maybe not quietly, but I'll say quietly, have worked their way up to the number two place behind Minnesota. That is something that is really something to behold. Now, on the one hand, I'm not that surprised because they've made some good trades. You know, the biggest trade they didn't make, which I didn't expect them to make, was of course keeping Ron Howard, a perennial All-Star and well known here in Kentucky, you know, where she honed her game. But the way that this team has been built, it's an aggressive team. Again, in the WNBA, we know how much they love the three-point shot, but they work the ball inside. In a lot of ways, they remind me of the New York Liberty last season, how they can just spread the ball around. And this season, I think you've seen a confidence with the Dream that they can beat the best teams in the league, the teams that that they used to lose to, and that's really the most encouraging thing for them. The other team to keep an eye on, it shouldn't be surprising with them, but they got off to a slow start, but they have really taken off since midseason, and that's the Las Vegas Aces. Asia Wilson, enough said. But the supporting cast around her, they've gotten healthy. Uh, they're really in a position. I think you have to look at them as a serious contender. Um, they went back to back. Yeah, th 2 years ago. New York won last year, but this year the Aces are a different team, and I think that they're still. I think that they're a different team in the sense that they have found themselves late, and that whole top echelon of Minnesota and New York better look out for them.
Gary, as always, man, you give some great insight, man. Greatly appreciate it. I want you to do two things. I want you, one, take us home, and in one word, while you take us home, Canelo or Crawford.
One word, Canelo. You know more about boxing, but I'm going to go with Canelo. Which of course that's something we really got to watch. You know, this again, we have another full boat of games, college football, NFL, Major League Baseball pennant races. Things are starting to get interesting there. Hopefully we can get into that the next time. Let's see, of course, NFL. And again, on my birthday, Packers, Commanders, you know where I'm going to be watching that. And I have divided loyalties in that game, but in this case, I'm going to be a Commanders fan as opposed to a Packers fan.
Hey, thanks y'all for watching us again. We greatly appreciate it. This week, watch some football, watch the NFL, watch some NCAA football. We didn't even get a chance to talk about that today, Gary. Watch some NCAA football, watch some soccer, watch the WNBA, watch some Major League Baseball. We haven't talked about that in a couple of weeks. So watch all that. And above all else, just watch some sports. Come back and see us real soon. Oh, by the way, Crawford by decision. Take care. Bye bye.